igneous rock, right? So let us try to see some of the important primary structures that you can see in the rocks that are being preserved. Now I am using the word preserved over here just because that these rocks in which you are going to see these primary structures are metamorphic rocks, right? So it itself gives a very anomalous thing that a metamorphic rock is preserving primary sedimentary structure. This typically happens due to the low grade of metamorphism. When we say low grade of metamorphism, it means the metamorphic facies has typically reached up to green schist facies. So let us try to see one of some of the particular examples of primary structures. This is the compositional banding that you can see in quartzites. So initially by these photographs, I am just trying to develop a background that what exactly has to be seen in the rock, and then how these structures are going to help you to interpret the fold patterns. So this is the first one which you can see, compositional banding or the layering which can be preserved in a metamorphic rock. These are the ripple marks. This also has been preserved in quartzites. You can see over here. These are another primary sedimentary structure. Planar cross bedding, very beautiful planar cross bedding has been captured in these again quartzites. Trough cross bedding over here, you can see there are various troughs which are formed typically in the metamorphic rock where they are being preserved. These are the metabasalt exposures in which there are filled vesicles, which we call it as amygdules, and these amygdules are essentially being stretched. Right? So this is one of the important primary structure that can be used for the interpretation of a deformed rock. These are pillow structures. It's a classic outcrop, also one of the geological monument at Maradihalli, Karnataka, where you will see beautiful development of the pillow structures preserved in the rock. Now, all of these particular structures, why I'm interested to show you, because it has its own importance in structural geology. When we talk about in structural geology, they help us to identify the direction of younging. Now what is this younging direction? Whenever you have a particular fold which has been developed on a regional scale, then based on these primary structures you can interpret whether the fold morphology is upright fold, or whether the fold morphology is overturned fold or recumbent fold, any variety. Because it is quite known that if a outcrop is of mesoscale, then you can interpret these structures very easily and you can take up the readings. But when the same structure is to be studied when the folds are of regional scale, then its importance increases. When I say regional scale, it means that the limb distance, the distance between two limbs is at least 25 kilometers or 35 kilometers, kind like that. Apart from that, in general, these primary structures are also used in geology to interpret what are the paleocurrent directions. So you can just have a look on this particular photograph where the direction of younging is indicated by blue arrow, whereas the paleocurrent direction is typically indicated by the red arrow. This is how we interpret, and this is how our knowledge pertaining to the primary structure can be typically used. So now let us try to do some sketching by which you will be able to interpret these structures typically by drawing a superposed fold which are essentially developed either in the progressive deformation, or if the deformation direction typically getting changed one after the other. Okay. So let us begin. I hope you have paper and pen ready with you. So I want that you should just simply sketch this particular diagram which I have drawn. Now in this diagram you are supposed to simply draw first an upright fold, then an inclined fold, overturned fold, which is turning towards the recumbent fold, right? So you can start sketching this particular outcrop. Once you are done with the sketching, please let me know so that we can proceed with the interpretation parts, that in what manner these primary structures are getting helped. In this diagram, you will find that there are small circles which are drawn at the bottom, and the smaller dots are even present at the top. This indicate one of the primary sedimentary structure which we term it as graded bedding, right? So finding upward sequence which is typically getting preserved in rock. So I want that you should sketch this diagram. Once you sketch this diagram, please incorporate these primary sedimentary structure as graded bedding and put the geological flavor in the form of an arrow, which is like this, and then we can begin with the interpretation. Yeah.
Yes, students, please confirm whether you have drawn and whether we should continue. Yes, Aditya, drawn.
Yeah. Okay. Now, once you have drawn this particular sketch, the arrow which has been kept at the top and the bottom indicate the nature of its formation. What I want to convey by keeping these particular arrows, which are the shear arrows, that in order to develop the entire geometry from upright to recumbent, you require such kind of a motion, in which if the shearing take place in this format, the same upright fold can be progressively formed to have inclined dome geometry, which will eventually have an overturned geometry, and finally it can reach up to the recumbent geometry. Now, once you have incorporated the primary sedimentary structures which are present inside in the form of a graded bedding, then the question arises to mark the direction of younging. See, understand, once again, I would like to repeat that you are trying to interpret a fold pattern which might be developed on a regional scale. If it is a mesoscale fold pattern, then you need not to worry about these things. But if the regional scale fold pattern is available, then these primary sedimentary structures can be useful to mark the direction of younging. Now, being and finding upward sequence, you might be agree upon that I can mark the direction of younging over here like this. Similarly, if I want to mark a direction of younging over here, it can be typically marked in this fashion. It itself suggests that the fold is of upright nature where it has two limbs, and along the two limbs you have development of these particular graded bedding. When the matter comes for about an overturned fold, you can see that over here there is the younging direction in this fashion, whereas over here the younging direction is typically changed to different geometry. Just a moment. Like this, whenever you try to interpret a regional scale fold geometry, then in this case, you can try to understand whether the fold is upright fold or whether the fold is inclined fold, or even in case of a recumbent fold, your younging direction will be in this fashion. Right? So by this, if you could draw a simple geometrical shapes of or the fold morphologies, turning it with the help of the arrows which are essential for its development and marking the younging direction, one can interpret that what is the morphology of the folded outcrop. Let us try to interpret if the fold pattern has been developed in a non-progressive kind of a deformation. I mean progressive kind of a deformation means within a same set of the deformation events, the entire fold geometry can develop right from upright to the recumbent part. But when we talk about non-progressive deformation, I want that you should start drawing a particular sketch in which there has to be a slab and another primary sedimentary feature we are trying to develop over here, that in the form of a ripple mark. So you can just simply draw a sedimentary slab, and over this sedimentary slab I want that you should draw a primary sedimentary structure called as ripple mark by giving two directional stresses arrows.
Yes, drawn.
Yeah. Now, in this case, what I am trying to make you understand that a primary sedimentary slab is available. Over the top of that primary sedimentary slab, there is a development of asymmetric ripple marks. Once we try to compress this particular slab, the slab will experience bending, and the first thing that will essentially develop over here, that will be the cleavages, which I have marked in the straight line. Also, let us try to nomenclate this particular feature as S0, which suggests in reality as SO, or the original cystosity fabric, and the same cleavage plane over here that we are able to see as C1 cleavage. This is the first set of cleavage which has started developing on account of layer parallel compression and developed perpendicular to the stress direction. Once this cleavage starts developing, the next stage, if the compression direction still continues or the stress condition still continues, the same cleavage which is available will generate a preferred orientation of the minerals. You can draw this preferred orientation of the minerals in this particular format, which itself give you a new plane of development over here. These are the minerals which are getting developed because the cleavage planes which are essentially getting developed in this layer, these cleavage planes will act as a weak zones, and whatever fluids that will be liberated during this compression on account of the generation of heat, those fluids will go and sit along these weak planes to generate a preferred fabric or the preferred orientation, you can say. Now, if you have nomenclated this as S0, then in this case, we can also abbreviate the next number by giving this preferred orientation as S1. Right? So let us keep these two nomenclations ready so that we can try to interpret that whenever a fold morphology it is getting generated, you have marked it as original cystosity fabric or S0 by the development of the ripple marks. The same ripple marks are also having a, or the layer is also having a cleavage plane. That cleavage plane is typically being uh, typically being assessed by the development of the schistosity fabric. So just draw up to this particular point.
Yes, Aditya, you can go ahead.
Okay. So I hope you understood up to this particular point. I will just have a recap. We have a sedimentary block. That sedimentary rock is aided with the primary sedimentary structure. The same block has been experiencing layer parallel uh, compression for the development of the cleavage planes. These cleavage planes facilitated the new fluid to sit into these cleavage planes to give you the schistosity fabric. Now, this schistosity fabric is essentially termed as foliation plane, and this foliation plane is developed in metamorphic rocks. Right? So, up to this point, you can suggest that there was a sedimentary rock, and then later on, this sedimentary rock is trying to be converted to the metamorphic rock by the development of the foliation plane. So, over here, if we try to see that what is the orientation of S0 and S1, if we try to see what is the orientation of S0 and S1, so I can draw a line for S0 like this. Similarly, I can draw a line for S1 like this, isn't it? This line is parallel to the S0 and this line is typically parallel to the S1. Similarly, if I want to project it on the other side, then the same drawing I can interpret on this side in the form where the S0 will be in this fashion and S1 will be in this fashion. What does this suggest? That you have S0 and S1 relationship which is oblique in nature. Understand, whenever you have S0 and S1 relationship oblique in nature, it is typically a variety of fold which is upright fold or having more interlimb angle. Interlimb angle means the angle between the two limbs, right? That we call it as interlimb angle. It means that the fold has not attained its tightness. Another point of fact over here that can be noticed, that if you want to reach to the core, or if you want to address where exactly the location of the core is lying, then you can see that the relationship of S0, the relationship of S0 and S1, which are forming an oblique angle with each other. One angle can be called as an acute angle, whereas the another angle can be called as an obtuse angle. So this acute angle side acute angle side will always define the hinge direction, right? So this is how one can interpret that based on the cleavage plane and the foliation plane, where could be the location of the hinge on a regional scale, of course. Now suppose the same layer, if the same layer is experiencing more compression, so what will happen? This particular layer will be more tightened, or the interlimb angle will be go on reducing. Right now, say for example, the interlimb angle is say 25 to 30 degrees. It will still go less to 15 degrees or 10 degrees. So let us try to see what is happening. Please draw a particular fold which is having an interlimb angle very less, that is less than 10 degrees, and a ripple mark again on the outer side, and tell me by demarcating where is your S0 and where is your S1. So I will also mark along with you. If I want to interpret over here as S0, S0 will be like this. And as you all know that based on our previous sketch, it was essentially perpendicular to the stress direction. So again, the stress direction is perpendicular to both sides. So there will be a generation of S1 in the same fashion in this direction, like this, parallel to the plane, like this, correct? So if your S0 is over here, similarly your S1 is over here. Now what is the relationship between S0 and S1? It is essentially parallel to each other, isn't it? You would notice that over here S0 and S1 relationship both are becoming parallel when the fold interlimb angle is less than 10 degrees. Such variety of a fold can be termed as, or it is typically called as, tight isoclinal fold, right? So whenever you have a particular fold geometry where S0 and S1 both are parallel, again, what is S0? S0 is your primary bedding, and what is S1? S1 is your cystosity fabric or the foliation plane. So you need to see or understand in a particular rock while doing any kind of a structural interpretation or structural mapping, that what is the relationship between the bedding plane and the foliation plane, whether the foliation plane and bedding plane are parallel to each other. If they are parallel to each other, then you can interpret that the nature of fold is tight isoclinal in nature, right? If the bedding and cleavage or the bedding and schistosity fabric, if both are oblique to each other, then the fold morphology might be somewhat like this, that is the upright geometry. Okay, so you can finish up this particular sketch and then we can proceed further. So you are supposed to draw a tight isoclinal fold, and on this tight isoclinal fold you need to mark the S1 fabric like this, which is essentially parallel to the bedding plane. Yeah.
Yes, drawn.
Yeah. Now, once we have reached to this particular stage, still The refolding of fold has not taken place. You have just demarcated one progressive deformation by the development of a tight isochronal fold. Say for example, if the fold gets refolded, means the fold has to be folded again. So can we draw a refolded fold in this fashion where there will be a development of a refolded fold? So I want that you should draw a sketch of a refolded fold where again the ripple marks has to be marked on the outer layer. So you need to refold a particular fold. You have to mark the ripple marks at the outermost layer. You have to nomenclate again. Where is your bedding plane? Say you know that your bedding plane is over here, which is going like this entirely from one end to the other end. You have also seen based on your earlier diagram that your relationship between bedding plane and the first cystosity fabric is also parallel. So let us keep the same nomenclature wherever your S0 is there. Your S0 is parallel to the S1. Now if there is a generation of new schistosity fabric over here because of this compression. So this new schistosity fabric that will be developed again perpendicular to the stress direction like this. Correct. So you just try to draw again a new fabric which is typically getting developed perpendicular to the stress direction in this format. Okay. Now, if you are trying to develop this new viscosity fabric, that is another set of foliation plane which is getting generated in the rock, where you have earlier nomenclated the earlier fabric or the foliation plane as S0 parallel S1. So the new nomenclature has to be given over here, which will be termed as S2. Okay. So this is the second set of schistosity fabric which is getting generated on account of refolded fold. Now, can you again suggest that what is the relationship of S0 parallel S1 with S2? So you will find that the relationship of S0 parallel S1 with S2 is again oblique in nature, right? Interpreting this nature over here, again it is oblique, over here again it is oblique, at the hinge it is perpendicular, right? So this goes on like S0 parallel S1. If it gets compressed or refolded, the S2 fabric will generate, that will be again oblique to each other, right? And it goes on S3, S4, S5, right? So depending on the stress condition or depending on the direction of the force which has been applied to that particular rock, a new foliation plane will always develop in that direction. So I just want that you should complete the sketch of this refolded fold and suggest what is the nature of refolded fold or what type of interference pattern you can predict based on this geometry. I will just clear up the geometry or draw the geometry one more time. you had a tight isoclinal fold like this, and the same tight isoclinal fold has been refolded. What is this geometry called as? First stage is like this, another next stage is like this. So firstly you complete the sketch by drawing S0 parallel S1, generating another set of schistosity fabric, that is S2, which is oblique to S0 parallel S1.
I think the students should attempt to guess the fold, guess the type. Okay, we have some comments. Type
Yeah.
3 wavy or hook shape.
Yes, very good. So typically it is a hook shape geometry that itself is an interference pattern, type 3 interference pattern. Now, as student has correctly picked up, let me show you in reality or in the folded outcrop how this pattern looks like. This pattern looks like this. So if you could see this fold geometry, you can predict a hook tape shape outcrop. Can you see this hook shape outcrop like this? Over here in this fashion. In the lowermost segment also you can interpret that there is a presence of hook over here which has been folded. Okay. So this is how the overall geometry tends to develop whenever you have perpendicular stresses acting. So either the case is of progressive deformation where you have the presence of primary sedimentary structure develop entirely and you need to define what is the direction of younging, in what manner the deformation has acted in case of progressive, as well as whenever you have variety of the stress conditions, either they are applied in the same direction or either they are applied in different direction, all the development will take place. But what is more essential to interpret in any outcrop? The bedding plane is the most essential part that has to be interpreted very correctly. If you understand what is the bedding plane in the rock, you can identify what is the first schistosity fabric. If you could see in a particular rock, the relationship between the bedding plane and the foliation plane both are parallel to each other, and there is a new set of generation of a schistosity fabric, then in that case again you are supposed to interpret it as the second schistosity fabric, right? So like this one can interpret the superposed folds in a particular area or an area of interest. Once you have a development of S2 schistosity fabric in any rock, just make sure that the area has polydeformed and possesses variety of the superposed folds. But it also depends in which particular direction there is a presence of schistosity fabric. Whether the schistosity fabric is in the direction of S0 parallel S1, or it may be possible that the development of the second schistosity fabric might be perpendicular, correct? So if it is perpendicular, then typically it may develop a domain Bayesian geometry. Now the outcrop that you are trying to see on your screen right now, this particular outcrop represents three phases of deformation. Now, when I say three phases of deformation, what does this mean? That you have a hook shaped geometry. So where will be my F1 fold axis? My F1 fold axis will be over here, and my F2 fold axis will be over here where I am moving my cursor. Similarly, whenever you have drawn this sketch, you can also mark that your F1 fold axis is over here, which I have highlighted with the black dot, and the one which is present over here with the red dot, that is your F2 fold axis, right? As it has been refolded, the F1 fold axis has moved on this side. So this is your F1 fold axis and this is your F2 fold axis. Similarly, if you see this outcrop, this becomes your F1 fold axis and this one becomes your F2 fold axis. The fold has been folded in a similar axial plane. The axial plane, new axial plane is like this, and the earlier one has been folded. Apart from that, one more point has to be noticed over here, that if you could see, there is a small dome, creation of a smaller dome over here. If you could make out that there is a creation of a smaller dome over here, what does this mean? That the rock earlier has experienced the compression from the above and below like this. Suppose if this is north, then this is your compression direction earlier to develop this hook shape pattern, and later on the perpendicular stress direction has generated the domal geometry. So this entire outcrop itself suggests three phases of deformation. But what is more crucial over here, you need to interpret where is the cystosity fabric, whether the cystosity fabric is parallel to the bedding plane or not. If they are parallel to the bedding plane, then where is the generation of a new cystosity plane. By this, you can interpret variety of the superposed folds. Either it may be type 0, which develops on account of the progressive deformation that we have taken up the case in the first sketch. Either it may develop on account of the multiple directional stresses. First stress like this horizontally and another one oblique to give a condition of plane non-cylindricity, or particularly a fold which is getting developed again refolded from an axial plane to give rise a mushroom shaped geometry or a crescent shaped geometry. And finally the last sketch that we have drawn, that is the non-plane cylindrical geometry, where you have F1 fold and where you have F2 fold. So all these particular fold geometries, they are solely dependent or interpreted based on these primary structures on a regional scale. So a common tip that I can provide whenever you see an outcrop, first try to see where is the bedding plane. Next, once you find out the bedding plane with the help of any of these particular primary structures like compositional banding, or ripple marks, or trough bedding, or graded bedding, then you try to focus to a particular outcrop to understand where is the foliation plane cutting. How to identify a foliation plane? There will be a layering or stacking of one after the other layers. I hope you have seen phyllites, you have seen schist, right? So you have a kind of a sheet like arrangement. So that sheet like arrangement will suggest where is the preferred orientation of the mineral. It is always not necessary that S0, that is your bedding plane, and the schistosity fabric both are parallel to each other. It is not necessary, right? It depends on the intensity of deformation that has been or that has been targeted in that particular region. So if the intensity of deformation is less, you may find that the development of S0 and S1, they are oblique to each other. If the intensity of deformation is too high, then the fold may tend to the tight isoclinal variety. So with the help of these variety of primary sedimentary structures on a regional scale, you can very well interpret the superposed fold pattern. So by this, I end up my particular talk. If you have any uh, questions, we can take. We have some time, so we can take up some of the questions.
Yes, I request all the students if they have any questions, they can either unmute their mics and ask the question directly, or type in your questions in the messages box. I must accept that Aditya just smoothly sailed us through all the rudimentary sedimentary structural features, and then associating them with the fold patterns. And the way you explained the lecture delivery, I must say that it was very easy to understand. And the first type of experience that I also got is somebody explaining in an online lecture, and we doing it here on a piece of paper and trying to draw planes of schistosity S0, S1, S2, like that, and interpret whether it is F1, F2. Though this fold of refolding pattern is a new thing for TYBSc students, but I hope the way that you explained was much easier to understand them, so they can, of course, understand other types of interpretation patterns.
Yeah.
And you also supplemented your drawings and explanations with the photograph that was beautifully shown at the end. So the concept learned and supplemented with a field photograph was very helpful.
Yeah. Thank you. So of course, whenever we have a online lecture, we have its own limitations. But definitely, I want to give an advice to all the students that whenever you see a particular outcrop, uh, don't be in just hurry to take the photograph. Don't be in an hurry to just break the outcrop, right? First try to observe an outcrop, try to see what are the features which are present inside, try to touch an outcrop and go closer to find out whether there is a bedding plane present or not. If you understand a bedding plane, then in that case you can very well interpret what is the regional scale fold geometry. I think we have some one question. uh, Sometimes the environment like delta has reverse grading sequence, so in that case how mark younging direction? It's an interesting question. I agree with Ruturaj that sometimes in you get a reverse sequence. Always you may not find particularly the finding upward sequence. You may have coarsening upward sequence also, but at the same time I want to address that you need not to rely on one particular primary sedimentary structure. You need to find out multiple primary sedimentary structures to corroborate your fact that the Younging direction is very well marked, right? If a delta is preserved in a particular or the sequence is preserved in the metamorphic rock, then there will be other signatures of primary sedimentary structures also present, right? So by this you can definitely mark the Younging direction. I hope I could resolve your query. Yes,
Yes, and I'm very sure that if you had to come here and take us to field, then you would have enjoyed it much better. We'll try
definitely.
that in future.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
try that.
for sure that we see this association works in future also, and I can assure that if you want to do fieldwork at Chitradurga terrain along with me, with the students, we can take up students to Chitradurga terrain, or even there are beautiful exposures in and around Manipal. We have over here one of the important geological monument, that is the columnar joints, St. Mary's Island. So we can plan up some kind of a field workshop or mapping camps, essentially a basic mapping camps in future, so that student will get a particular idea how to study the structures in the field.
Yes, definitely. If there are any more questions, then please type in. We'll wait for 1 minute for some people to type. I have I have pasted a feedback form in the chat box. So whoever is attending the lecture, kindly fill up the feedback form, and the certificate will be delivered directly to your mailbox. I think we don't have any more questions, so I would request my student, TYBSc student Ishita Paliekar, to propose vote of thanks.
It is my great pleasure to propose the vote of thanks after this fruitful session. I, on behalf of the Department of Geology, Tempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, and the Geological Society of Goa, extend a hearty thanks to our guest speaker today, Dr. Aditya U. Joshi, Assistant Professor of Geology, Department of Civil Engineering, Manipal Institute of Technology, Manipal, Karnataka. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to you, sir, for kindly sparing your time to share your valuable knowledge with us all today. I would also like to extend thanks to the Geological Society of Goa and Dr. Anthony Viagas, President GSG, for their willingness and cooperation to organize this session. I would also like to thank the Faculty of Geology at the MP College of Arts and Science for bringing to us such informative lecture sessions. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all my fellow students for attending and getting much use of this lecture. I would also like to invite you all to the next lecture sessions that will be held on December 18, 2021. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for being here virtually this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that lectures on 18th will be, pamphlets will be distributed again. They'll be shared on WhatsApp groups as I did for this lecture. Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you, sir. See you.
See you.